He said all that, but then you see him out in public with 21, not hiding, not slipping through back doors, but sitting out in the open like it's nothing. The pictures weren't even secret. They were caught while they were at a restaurant. That St. Vincent spot, the same one that went viral, basically flipped the internet upside down. Fans rushed into the comments and she tried to cool it down, saying she was just camera shy, trying to explain away the moment. But come on, that one post was enough to turn what should have been a quiet, low-key vacation into a front-page headline everywhere. And then the internet did what it always does. People started looking at those photos and saying they gave off marriage vibes. Not because there was a ring on display or some legal paperwork, but just from the way the energy looked in those frames. You could feel it. The vibe was saying loud and clear, "We're outside together and we're not hiding it." That alone was enough fuel to set the timeline on fire. But here's where it gets messier. There's already a wife in this picture. Her name is Rihanna Joseph. Multiple news outlets have reported her as 21's wife for some time now. Some even brought up rumors about a divorce floating around back in 2023, though when you check deeper, nobody can point to any official court documents. So it's not just gossip. The reports about the wife exist. They're written down, printed, and published. Which is why these new photos felt like dropping a match in a pile of dry leaves. And it's exactly why people online started whispering, or let's be honest, outright saying, that Rihanna might be getting ready to sue. Now let's rewind to how all this started. Because when you really look at those pictures, it didn't feel like some random chance moment. It almost seemed intentional. The angles looked too perfect, the lighting too soft, and the closeness between them was just enough to spark conversation without crossing into full PDA. It was intimate.
I like being private. I think it ain't really nobody business. Like, listen to the music and you'll know what you need to know.
Right.
See, here's how you really play the game. You don't throw long essays under your posts. You don't go on live and explain every little detail. You let the blogs do the heavy lifting for you. All you do is keep your captions short, sweet, and just cute enough to keep people guessing. That's how you feed the fire without trapping yourself in labels. And if we're being completely real here, the way this played out has Elle's fingerprints all over it. This wasn't sloppy. This wasn't someone acting desperate. It was strategic. Every move looked carefully placed. She understands something a lot of people forget. A single image can say way more than 1,000 words ever could. And she also knows exactly who she's standing next to. 21 isn't the type to talk a lot. He's not going to spill his own story online. So how do you get someone like that to step into the spotlight without forcing him? You don't ask. You raise the stakes. You stand next to him in broad daylight so that if he stays silent, it looks intentional. It flips the whole perception. And that's why one particular line has been running in circles online. Silence starts to look like a choice. Now, as for the legal side of this, people are buzzing about a possible case filing, but so far no major outlet has shown an actual verified case number. That doesn't mean the noise isn't loud, though. It's aimed straight at the soft spot of this whole situation. If paperwork does surface, this instantly shifts from rumor to hard reality. But even if no legal filing ever comes, the pictures already did their job. They convinced the public that this relationship is official, at least in the court of opinion. And they also dragged the wife's storyline right back into the spotlight, where nobody can ignore it. At the end of the day, what do we really have here? Real photos, undeniable chemistry, a publicly reported wife still in the background, and a rollout that feels way too neat to be called random. It wasn't some messy leak, it was a carefully placed push. A small nudge, but a smart one, because once sunlight hits a secret, it stops being a secret. And now somebody has to make the next move, whether that's him, her, or the wife.
She's mad at me because we had shared that she was in a relationship with 21 Savage, or we claimed that she was based on some stuff that we saw online, and she, her team wanted to pay me to take it down, and I said we don't do that. And she had put me in a freestyle, which she was the first rapper to do that in a nice way, one that mattered. All the other rappers who talked about me aren't even famous enough to mention. But I thought, like, what, her getting mad at me.
After those island photos hit the internet, the big question wasn't just what we saw. It was how we were allowed to see it. That's where the spin really shows up. Because notice this. Latto isn't running to Instagram Live. She isn't handing exclusives to the shade room. She's not even dropping statements. Instead, it feels like she's letting carefully chosen pictures tell the story for her. The silence almost becomes part of the narrative. Now, I'm not here to point fingers directly, But let's be real. If she really did have a hand in how those pictures surfaced, then Latto is moving smarter than people give her credit for. She's always been about showing the polished, glamorous parts of her life while keeping the heavy and personal things behind a wall. Anytime she's asked about marriage or kids, she makes it clear that's the type of thing she'd protect and keep private. Which is why these photos feel so on brand. They feed the fans just enough sweetness while keeping the deeper layers hidden away. That's not random. That's smart PR wrapped up as if it's just casual living. But here's the catch. Moves like this don't always land the way you expect, especially if 21 figures out she was behind it. Because everyone knows how he operates. 21's not the type to unpack family business in public. The only times we've ever really seen him open up are when he's joking around with his boys or vibing next to Drake. Beyond that, he's quiet. His music speaks, his tours keep him moving, but when it comes to relationships, he rarely puts words on it. Which is exactly why one simple, clean photo of him standing next to Latto can end up sounding louder than an official press release. That's what makes this so powerful. The machinery around them has been cautious, almost surgical, in controlling what leaks and what doesn't. And honestly, I don't wish this type of exposure on anyone, because once your secret is out, you can't put it back in the box. But that's the tricky part here. Was it really a secret? If you're comfortable enough to step out together in public, maybe that means something bigger. But here's the thing. Until there's an actual case number or a court filing that people can point to, everything floating around right now is still in the land of allegedly. That's the word everyone keeps leaning on. Meanwhile, the internet is doing what it always does, splitting into two camps. On one side, you've got supporters saying, they're grown, let them live their life, stop digging so deep, and maybe people would let it slide. If it wasn't for those louder whispers about his wife possibly prepping to sue, again, nothing official yet, all of this tea could be wrong. But once it's poured, you can't help but sip and see if it tastes true. Now let's put some history behind this story because context is exactly what makes these new pictures so explosive. Let's start with the part that isn't up for debate, the kids. 21 Savage has 3 children. He's talked about them and the media has confirmed it for years. Nobody's arguing if his kids are real. That's solid ground. And when you know a man already has a family, every new romance that goes public hits harder. It adds weight to every picture, every caption, and every sighting, because you're not just seeing a couple. You're seeing a shift that could affect real lives. Then there's the wife. Her name is Kiana Joseph. That's not a rumor whispered on fan blogs. That's something multiple outlets have put in print. She's been reported as his wife for a while. Around 2023, chatter about a possible divorce started swirling, but the paperwork? That never surfaced publicly, at least not in the way fans like to imagine. So here's what we actually know. The wife is real, the divorce status is uncertain, and the timeline between all of this is messy. And a messy timeline is the perfect fertilizer for gossip to grow wild. Think back to 2019. 21. Savage was arrested by ICE, and the world was stunned to learn he wasn't born in Atlanta like people thought, but in the UK, and that he had overstayed his visa. That part is fact. Ever since, fans have connected dots between that moment and his marriage. The running theory? He married Kiana for immigration purposes, to secure a green card. According to the story, she knew what it was, and the relationship was more about paperwork than passion. Some people even push the idea further, saying that's why whispers about an open marriage never really went away. Allegedly, if both people in a marriage know the rules and accept them, then stepping out in public with someone like Latto doesn't automatically count as betrayal. It could just be part of the arrangement. Again, let's be clear, that's speculation, not a confession. But it's exactly the type of speculation that makes this whole rollout feel even bolder. Because let's be honest, people have been piecing this story together for years. The tattoo behind her ear with Shea, which happens to be 21's real name. Those sneaky trips where both of them just happened to pop up in the same city at the same time. Birthday shoutouts that felt a little too perfectly timed to be coincidence. They never came out and confirmed anything, but fans didn't need official word. They stitched together an entire relationship timeline all on their own, without permission, just by watching the clues. So when those St. Vincent pictures finally dropped, nobody gasped like it was brand new information. It felt more like proof. The photos were validation, confirmation that years of fan-made theories weren't just fantasies. They were built on something real, and when you put all those pieces together, the kids, the wife with unclear divorce papers, the immigration struggles, and the years of a romance that was hidden yet not hidden. You can see exactly why a simple vacation photo dump exploded into headlines like marriage pics and wife fire. Seuss. The past gave the present its weight. Every old rumor made the new images feel like a statement. And if those whispers about an open marriage are even halfway true, then it would explain why Latto looks so unbothered and why 21 himself seems comfortable enough to step into the daylight with her. At this stage, it's bigger than just Latto and 21 Savage. Their situation mirrors the same cycles we've seen with other celebrity couples: messy rumors, private pain, and then public storytelling. Think about Beyoncé and Jay-Z. They had whispers swirling too, but instead of denying or confirming, they turned it into something more powerful. Lemonade laid bare the heartbreak, 444 was the response, and suddenly what looked like a near divorce became cultural gold. They flipped messy whispers into music that redefined their brand. The point here isn't about stacking catalogs or comparing music careers. It's about showing how a couple can take control of their own story. When you set the rhythm yourself, people are quicker to forgive the missteps. Latto and 21 aren't about to release albums spilling their personal drama, but the playbook they're following feels familiar. Let the world chatter endlessly while you guide the narrative in silence. Think about Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. They didn't rush anything. For years, it was just soft clues, low-key appearances, and little sightings that left people wondering. Then when it was time, they revealed everything on their own terms. By the time those iconic maternity photos dropped, the story wasn't gossip anymore. It was theirs. That's the same approach Latto seems to be reaching for. Don't hand over too much too fast. Let the internet argue itself tired until eventually, everyone just accepts the new normal. But that raises the real question. What is the new normal here? If 21's marriage to Rihanna was more about paperwork than passion, and if both of them understood that arrangement, then it explains why he can be seen with Latto in broad daylight without hesitation. It doesn't turn the situation into a fairy tale, but it does make the moves make sense. In that light, the whispers about Rihanna suing start to feel less like a guarantee and more like a warning shot. Because if both parties knew the deal from the start, what exactly would the legal grounds be? Allegedly, of course. Always allegedly. And here's the bigger picture. Every celebrity couple gets thrown into this same machine. Hide your relationship and people accuse you of being ashamed. Put it out in the open, and people say you're performing for attention. There's no real way to win. The only choice you have is deciding what you're willing to feed the crowd. So where does this go next? That's the question hanging over everything right now. Whether this fades away as just another spicy week on the timeline, or whether it cements itself as a chapter tied to Latto and 21's names for years, depends entirely on their next moves. Right now, they're at a fork in the road, and whichever path they take will tell us exactly what kind of story this turns into. If the wife really does move forward with a lawsuit, the entire vibe flips overnight. A single court filing would drag everything out of private whispers and drop it into the permanent record. Suddenly, we're not just talking about a few island photos. We're talking about timelines being dissected, marriage dates being analyzed, kids being mentioned, and maybe even immigration paperwork getting pulled up for everyone to see. That's the kind of pressure that would force 21 to break his silence and address things directly. No more hiding behind the shadows. And for Latto, that shift wouldn't come easy either. Even if she isn't officially named in any filing, her name would be plastered across every headline, tied to the mess whether she wanted it or not. That's dangerous ground for someone still climbing into the center of mainstream pop. Because while the internet thrives on chaos, the companies, brands, and award shows she's trying to win over, they hate uncertainty. If the lawyers get involved, this stops being gossip and turns into a full-blown soap opera with real stakes and consequences. But if no lawsuit ever comes, the opposite happens. The storm dies down. The photos slowly stop feeling scandalous and start feeling normal. Latto and 21 slide into that gray space of a public-ish couple, where people treat them like any other celebrity pairing. Sometimes fans will call it cute, sometimes cringe, but eventually it becomes accepted as real. And if that's the case, then this vacation rollout will be remembered as the turning point, the moment their relationship shifted from whispers to undeniable fact. Now let's bring Latto's own words back into this, because they tell you everything about the playbook she's using. She's said before that if marriage or a baby comes into her life, she wants to keep that private. That means if those milestones do happen, don't expect balloon-filled Instagram reveals or a glossy Vogue cover. Expect quiet hints, subtle posts, and a reveal months after the fact. That's her way of protecting her peace in an industry that chews up privacy and spits it out. For 21, the bigger picture is about legacy and tone. He's already lived through the ICE scandal, criminal charges, rap feuds, and media storms. And through it all, he's kept this image of steady, quiet strength. If he frames this relationship as grown man choices, standing firm in who he is, he comes out looking stable and controlled. But if a lawsuit drags him into the mud, that same calm tone is what he'll have to lean on to make it through. Because here's the truth. Fans will forgive mistakes, but they rarely forgive lies. Consistency is his survival tool. That's his way forward.